welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time to come tonight to this all-important Mounds View School Board Forum. We're very fortunate to have 9 candidates here tonight. We thank you again. We know how important this is to the community. We value you being here. I would like to acknowledge a few people before we begin who were instrumental in helping us to pull this together. Mr. Niall Zickman, the city administrator. He secured the room for us. He was also instrumental in getting 9 North to be here. So we're very grateful to 9 North for taping the show tonight. Also, Mr. Vern Rice here in the front row. He is part of a group, the North Suburban Progressives. He's helping us sort the questions. I also would like to acknowledge Julie Clark, who I had not met, but I just met tonight. Julie put together those beautiful flyers, if you had a chance to see those, and she also made the name cards, so thank you, Julie. And also, Mr. Gary Mielhaus, I believe you're in the back. He is my colleague with the Lions Club. My name is Jody LaLiberty. I'm the president of the Shoreview Arden Hills Lions Club, and our group is hosting this for the very first time. So bear with us. Hopefully things will go smoothly. So far, so good. We're very, again, appreciative of this room and the people in it. So just 2 other quick notes. We do have a timekeeper, Lion Mel McCormick, here in the front row, so she'll be doing that tough job. And then the moderator for this evening is Mr. Steve LaLiberty. He is also a Lion, a past Rotarian, president, CEO of iProduction, has a very long resume, but most importantly, he's my husband.
So the number 1 rule in a good relationship is I always get the last word. Yes, dear. So the first thing I want to do is give you a little commercial on the Lions. Shoreview Arden Hills Lions are part of Lions International. We support local and international projects through service projects and fundraising. 100% of the money we generate is donated back to the community, local nonprofits, city improvements, and charitable causes. We have a zippy little video, only takes 1 minute, I want you to take a look at. There you go, join the Lions. Okay, we're going to get right into it. Our format tonight is each of the candidates are going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. And then we're going to go into doing 6 to 8 questions where they'll have 1 minute each to respond. Those questions were sent to the candidates ahead of time, so they've got time to practice their answers. But then the second part is we're taking questions from the audience, and most of you got a card, filled it out, bring it in, and Vern is going to give me the questions, and he's going to pick them out, and we'll ask him, and we'll go till our time limit is up. And then finally, we'll have 1 minute each candidate for a closing statement. Before we get into the introductions, I know I'm not even supposed to be using this one. Heidi Danielson couldn't make it tonight, but she's got a representative here, Diane Glashine. I got that wrong, and she's going to do the introduction.
Good
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Glasheen. I am a resident of New Brighton. I'm married. I have 2 children. Our daughter went to Irondale and graduated last year, so she is at Iowa State University, and our son is a junior currently at Irondale. I am currently a member of the Mounds View School Board. While I am not a candidate in this election, my colleague Heidi Danielson is running for re-election to the Mounds View School Board, and I am here on her behalf. Heidi has served on the board for the last 4 years and feels called to continue that work of the board, partnering with the district staff, administration, and community to continue to work toward the best for each student in the schools. Heidi has lived in Mounds View School District for over 25 years with her husband, first in Mounds View and now in New Brighton, while they raised their 3 children. She has served at our district as a classroom volunteer and led many school-wide functions, activities, committees, while her kids attended first Pinewood and then Sunnyside Elementary Schools, Edgewood Middle School, and Irondale High School. She has also been involved with our schools at the district level, serving on the Curriculum Advisory Committee, the district-wide Facilities Task Force, as a trustee on the Mounds View Schools Education Foundation, and on the Mounds View School District Equity Council, as well as her work on the school board over the last 4 years. Through Heidi's volunteer work in the schools, she has met many of the dedicated staff who serve our students and our community every day. In our classrooms, our educators work to help each student succeed, to learn, grow, and develop their skills and abilities, and to provide a safe and welcoming community for each student. Our school district has a history of providing excellence for our students and community, and Heidi is committed to continue to work with the administration and staff to provide opportunities for each student in the Mounds View schools to achieve. While the Mounds View School District continues to provide an excellent education to students in our community, there are issues facing our students in the district that will require the attention of the school board and administration as we move forward. During her service to our schools and on the board, Heidi has exhibited an ability to understand that the needs of our students and families. Heidi has exhibited an ability to understand the needs of our students and families vary greatly within our classrooms and across our district. She is committed to understanding those needs and partnering with district staff and families to provide resources and opportunities for our students. Thank you in advance, and please join me in supporting Heidi Danielson for Mounds View School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who won the draw?
I never get to say what he said or what she said. Whenever you're ready.
Yep, this is your introductions. You've got 2 minutes.
Hi everyone, thanks for having us here. I really appreciate the turnout. I'm Rich Priore. I've lived in the district for a little more than 11 years with my wife, who's from New Brighton, graduate of Irondale, and our 4 kids. So I didn't realize until we moved here that there are sides of the district, the east and the west. So we have kind of uniquely 2 kids on each side. So I have a high schooler at Irondale. I have a middle schooler at Highview. I have another middle schooler at Chippewa and another elementary student at St. Valentine Hills. So just trying to keep track of their buses and their activities. Occasionally we lose one. It's okay, we find them later. I'm originally from upstate New York. I spent the first 10 years after military school, active duty in the Army. I'm a disabled American veteran. I started and manage a business based here in Minnesota that does education and training for companies to integrate with what their performance improvement needs are. And probably most importantly, I've been an educator for the last 20 years, including up until about a year ago at St. Thomas. I taught in their MBA program, Finance and Economics, and before that, the University of Minnesota. Now I teach for the oldest school of public health. I'm an associate professor for Tulane University in New Orleans. Obviously, I teach online. I've been involved with lots of boards and activities I am an active national ski patroller. I patrol at Wild Mountain. And I look forward to your questions. Thanks again for having us here.
Hello, I'm Art Mills, and I am the father of two lovely girls. One is at Mounds High School right now, the other has recently graduated. And I want to talk to you tonight about the conversation that many of us are having about the academic achievement scores declining and the academic gap widening based on where you live in the district. But not by the numbers, rather by a realization. The numbers you'll hear as the table continues on down the road. I want to talk to you about the process by which we've tried to get this information out to you, the voter. We've been providing report card information from the Minnesota Department of Education showing the gap in achievement and showing the deficiencies in our achievement. And each time we've done this, a member of the existing school board has poo-pooed this as somehow irrelevant based on the false notion that opt-outs count as not proficient. It was only this weekend that Mr. Weinhagen and I finally agreed that the numbers we are providing are, the proficiency numbers are based on the number of students tested. And that's when the realization hit me. Year after year, the current school board had no idea. They've never even looked. Year after year, they had no idea that there was a problem that was exacerbating. Year after year, they have instituted no new policies. They have written no new regulations. They have partnered with nobody in the community to shrink the gap and make the deficiencies better. Year after year, they have fiddled while the district has started to burn. They have become essentially the school board version of The Walking Dead, which has unfortunately led to a bunch of children who are now the walking unread. I too could get elected to the school board and I could rearrange deck chairs on the Titanic, but that's not who I am in an emergency. Who I am in an emergency, I'm gonna go down and man the lifeboats. I'm gonna try to get people safe. I'm gonna do something, anything to make a difference, even only for one life. And so as a board member, we're gonna start having our meetings at Irondale and at Edgewood and at Pinewood. We're gonna try to partner with local charities and volunteers to have an ice cream or cocoa night with a reading. I'm sorry, what?
10 seconds.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, geez, that was quick. I lost my whole thing. So I would also for sure craft a policy that makes people accountable for the limitations, but I can only do this because I realize the problem exists. If you're happy with the way things are, please enjoy your seat and have a view of the iceberg.
My name is Andre Cohen, and I have two daughters who are back there. My wife is there, and we've been a part of the district. Well, I bought the house in 2004. We've been in this community since then. And you're going to hear some things that are really interesting tonight. You're going to hear three candidates. I know you see a lot of people up here, but you're actually looking at three candidates: fear, cynicism, and optimism. And so as we think about who stokes fear, who are the cynics, who are the people who talk about how it used to be yesterday, comparing us to other communities that are not like us. We know that the good old days were not always good for everybody. And when we think about our Somali brothers and sisters who are joining us in this community, we think about our Hmong brothers and sisters who are joining us in this community, and our Hispanic brothers and sisters, our Czech brothers and sisters who are joining us in this community, what kind of community are we creating? And so when I think about what I offered to the school board, I've been a classroom teacher. I've been in the university setting. I've been in the K-12 setting. And one of the things that I know is that if we're not able to sustain the greatness that we have, keeping the foundation of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, making sure people get their basic needs, then they can't get their psychological needs. And to be quite honest, test scores won't go up if people aren't psychologically and physically safe in our schools. So what we need to be thinking about is optimism and not stoking fear and cynicism. And I'm on the side of optimism. My name is Andre Cohen. Vote Cohen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Kelleher, and my school board campaign can be summarized into two words: academic excellence. We used to have it, and now we don't. Less than 2/3 of our 10th graders are reading at grade level. Less than half of our 11th graders are able to do math proficiently. That's not academic excellence. When I've brought up these concerns before, my opponents who sit on the school board have scoffed at the notion that academic excellence and proficiency testing is important. Of course it's important. It's important. The fact of the matter is, there's going to be at least two excuses you might hear tonight. COVID is the reason for the decline in performance. That's not true. If that comes up as a reason, don't believe it. The fact is that over the last 10 years, academic performance has been on the decline here in 621. The other excuse that you might hear, it's my personal favorite, is that opt-outs somehow or another impact the calculation negatively. So the students that opt out of the proficiency testing bring down the scores. That's not true. That's a total half-truth. So if that comes up in the conversation tonight, don't believe that either. The fact of the matter is, proficiency testing does matter. Your doctor, your dentist, your electrician, your plumber, even your hairstylist, they've all had to demonstrate proficiency, and there's no reason why we shouldn't expect that our students demonstrate proficiency as they matriculate through our program. I'm all about getting us back to being a beacon of academic excellence like we once were. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for showing us that the school board matters to you too. My name is Alyssa Dare Nelson, and I am running for school board here in this district. I am one of the teacher endorsed, SEIU endorsed, AFL-CIO endorsed, Outfront endorsed candidates, and well, there's a couple other endorsements there too. In any case, and these have all come through questioning, right? What do I stand for? Why am I here? What are my qualifications? And so if you resonate with any one of those groups, you know that I've been put through their gauntlet. I am a mom of 2 high schoolers here in this district. I have a junior and a senior. We've been in this district for 10 years, so maybe that was when the academic decline started, when we entered. I'm kidding. We're very, very proud of the experience that we've had here. They went to Turtle Lake, then Chippewa, and now they're at Mounds High School. We were lucky enough to sort of fall into this district when I got married to my amazing husband 10 years ago. And I'm running for 4 reasons. One is to increase the support for mental health services and well-being services in this district. Andre alluded to the Maslow's hierarchy, and what we know is that nationwide we have a mental health crisis, and the preventive side of that is well-being. And we know when people are well, they do well. This is by research. Also to support inclusive and comprehensive curriculum, to ensure teachers have resources, and to improve collaboration between all.
Thank you. Thank you, Lions, for inviting me this evening. Appreciate all the good work you do in the community, especially your work at our food bank over at Ralph Reeder. It makes a big impact. I'm Jim DeMay, I'm running for re-election to Mounds View School Board. I grew up in Shoreview, attended Island Lake, Chippewa, and Mounds View. Like many folks, I moved back to this district to have my kids experience an excellent public school education. I have 2 graduates of Mounds View High School. They've taken very different paths. One is in law school, one's in tech school, and I'm very proud of both of them. I think one of the big things when you look at schools is where you spend your time and where you spend your money. At the Mounds View School District, my budget focus has always been on spending money in the classroom. We spend over 76% of our funds in the classroom. That is focused on teachers, paras, classroom things to help the kids learn. Our district has excellent teachers. We can retain teachers. We attract teachers. We were full up hired at the start of the year when many districts were struggling. 98% of our teachers are properly licensed at a high level, 65% master's degrees. You have years and years of teachers' experience. We have implemented a strong catch-up program from learning loss. During COVID, there was learning loss. Our intervention specialists look at every kid. They do a personal evaluation, and they put kids in 8-week programs to try to help them up with reading and math. After 8 weeks, these kids are evaluated by a human being, and they will also either be put back into a class or they will continue on their 8-week journey until we produce some substantial improvement. Mounds View School District has been very innovative. Our Career Pathways program started with Anoka Ramsey Community College, and we were the first in the state to do that, and over $4 million of tuition has been saved by parents. Thank you.
Hi. Excuse me. My name is Paul Wickstrom. I'm running for school board in the Mounds View School District, and thank you to Lions Club for hosting tonight. I've lived in this district for 27 years. My wife and I have raised 3 children, K through 12, and they've all graduated. My qualifications are on my website, Wickstrom for School Board, so I'm not going to repeat those tonight. But the 3 areas that I'm running on: school safety, let's stop the fighting, the violence in the schools; academic achievement, we need to get those scores back up and get these students better prepared for life by a number of measures; and parental involvement, let's get the parents working with the teachers. I want to take a moment to discuss this word safety. It seems there's some confusion about this word, and specifically relating to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I've been using Maslow's hierarchy of needs ever since I started door knocking this summer and talking to people. Who was Abraham Maslow? He was a pretty chill dude, a psychologist who lived in the 20th century, and his hierarchy has been used as a training standard, a framework in psychology for quite a few years now. It's widely adopted. His hierarchy of needs goes from the basic physiological to the safety, security, love and belongingness, and self-esteem, eventually getting to the top, self-actualization. When I listen to some of the people that I'm running against, they want to turn this upside down and talk about emotional security first. I think we need to start from the bottom after meeting the students' basic needs in the schools. Physical security comes next, and then it's emotional security. So I think it's really important to make sure that we follow this positive hierarchy like Andre suggested. It is a positive hierarchy, and that should be our mental framework, our model. Bottom line, we have a major issue of fighting in our schools. We have to stop the violence in our schools so that kids and teachers feel safe again. If you're an administrator or a school board member that doesn't acknowledge this fact, you're not accepting reality. So thank you.
I'm Heidi Kakamo. I have 3 kids in the district. I have many, many kids, I feel like, but 3 are in the district. My husband and I actually have 6 between us, but 3 happen to be in our district. Generally, I'm the one that's fired up and super passionate, and people tell me I need to calm down. And man, this room is pretty fired up today, and I think it's kind of cool because we all care about our kids. And, you know, I started this basically about my kids and asking questions. But I really got passionate and really got fired up, and it continues to grow as I talk to more parents, more teachers, more students, and I hear their stories. And so I see the data, and it's powerful. It gets me a little heated. But when I hear from parents their stories or students their stories, how it has been bullied or punched in school and the impact that has had, or the kids that are seeing that, you know, they're experience the violence happening, or the parents whose 9th graders don't want to go to school because they don't feel safe. Those are the stories I've heard that have me fired up and asking questions. And I think that everyone up here is right. Physical safety is important, and so is emotional, but I think they tie together. If you do not feel safe in your environment, you're not going to feel emotionally safe. It has to start with physical safety. And right now, we do not have good policies around the behavior of our students from elementary all the way through high school. We need to get solid policies in place to ensure our teachers can thrive and teach an environment without chaos and constant behavioral issues, and that our students can learn how to be disciplined. And by discipline, I mean disciplined in character. In order to have a job, you have to be disciplined, to be there on time, to show up, to, you know, same examples with our kids. Hand in your homework on time. Do not be tardy. That disrupts the rest of the students. We need to start teaching them those things they need to thrive when they graduate. At the end of the day, this is what our schools are for. And these are the things that our community are yelling and need right now. So I am up here, Heidi Kakmo. I'm really trying to be a voice for the parents, the students, and the teachers in our community.
Well, good evening. Thank you for being here. Appreciate all of your time and attention. Jonathan Weinhagen. I am running for re-election to the Mounds View School Board. Served nearly a decade on the board, currently serving as board chair, and wondering as I sit here, the 9th person in line, if I should change my name tag to Edward Smith, because I've been accused of leading the Titanic down a dangerous path. And, we're going to have time today to talk about that. And I hope we do. I don't believe we're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. I don't believe that we're a sinking ship. I think we've got a strong foundation built with incredible teachers, incredible educators, incredible staff, and an incredible community that has a legacy in this place and space. And I want to talk about that, together tonight in a productive way. I grew up in this school district. Me and my wife both graduated from Mounds High School. We have 4 boys all going through the school district system. We're proud of being a part of this community. It's the reason I'm here today. And, I think what started as a little bit of negative rhetoric, because I'll tell you, I don't like this part of campaigns and elections, because we're all just parents and residents and citizens who care about our kids. That's the thing we have in common, is the negativity. And if you had seen us, moments before this started, we were joking and laughing and shaking hands because we all share a commonality. It's a passion for this place and space. It's the same thing that we heard from the video that the Lions showed. It's a commitment to this community. So I'm hopeful that in the time we have together tonight, we can all create a space that's positive. We can ask tough questions. We can share tough answers and inputs. But let's keep this thing positive this evening. So, Jonathan Weinhagen, looking forward to our time together.
All right, thank you, candidates. Now we're going to move into a session where we're going to ask a question, and everybody will have 1 minute. And we're just going to pass the microphone. We'll go this direction, and then when we round robin, you don't get to be first again. It goes Heidi. So then we'll move along. Okay?
I wanted to be first.
Okay. All right, well, here's the first question. No, that's second round.
Second round, I can be first.
You get to go first.
Exciting.
On the first round. Okay, what are your ideas on retaining teachers in the classroom?
Well, teacher retention is critical. We have a great history of retaining our teachers. Teacher pay is a big deal. We are, a district that historically is focused on mid-range. And we have been. We've fallen a little bit out of that mid-range space. I can't speak to the current contract negotiations, but one of the things that the board is really focused on is ensuring that we get ourselves back to that place and space. I also think we need to talk about teachers of color. As our demographics change across the district, we need to ensure that the educators we have reflect the student population today and tomorrow. So anything we do needs to focus on ensuring that we have procedures in place to ensure that we can attract, retain, train, and keep those educators moving forward.
I love our teachers. I've had some really great experiences, and even today I had some great emails from teachers about my kids having hard days. And so I think our teachers are very empathetic. I think they are so gifted in what they do. And so we need to take care of them. And I feel like their job is very difficult right now. It's hard for them to do what they do best, and that is to teach our children as they're loving on our children each day. And I think it goes back to the behavioral policy. And you'll find I'll keep going back to that all day today because I'm very passionate about it. Unless our children have boundaries and can behave in class so our teachers can teach, we will never give our teachers an environment where they can do what they do best. The teachers I've spoken with, the parents I've spoken with are frustrated. They're frustrated because it's out of their control. They want to do their job and instead they're managing fights. And so I think we need to get discipline under control first, and I think that will go a long way. I can't say that money is not a big thing because obviously that is. I'm kind of going on set, but I think we need to start with managing the classroom for them.
I've been coaching soccer. I probably coached 1,000 hours. I've been managing people for 20 years. And coaching soccer, an epiphany came to me one day where I realized they just want to have fun. It's not just the practice plan and the games. They just want to have fun and be with each other. And I found the same is true of managing people for 20 years. So for me, first and foremost, is it a fun, enjoyable environment? And that's the first thing that I would want to do as far as addressing and attracting retention. Addressing retention and attracting teachers. Do we have a safe and supportive environment? Are we supporting the teachers' decisions when it comes to classroom disruptions? Are we providing an enjoyable and challenging environment where teachers want to grow and develop too. Do they all have development plans? I'd like to dig into that because employees really need development, and then provide competitive salaries. And that's what I would do to address the teacher, attracting teachers.
I believe, like all of us, we think we have great teachers in the Mounds View School District, and we certainly do. Why do we have great teachers? Because the community, the administration, the students, the parents treat them like the professionals they are. That is why we can attract good teachers. We have proper class sizes, we provide them the instruments they need to be successful in the classroom, and we provide proper classroom sizes and respect for the teachers that we have. Of course, pay is very, very important. And we need to also provide training and mentoring for new teachers. We have a great mentoring program. Our older teachers take younger teachers under their wings and really do show them the ropes. And in the summertime, we have a very voluntary program with our teachers that they can either take in-person or web classes to become better teachers. And I'm always amazed, and this is their own time. They show up and they do this, and it is really great that they strive for excellence. Thank you.
Much of what has been said already, I completely agree with. Our teachers are amazing. If you've had interactions with teachers, which if you've got kids going through the public school system, you have, and they will tell you they love what they do and they love doing it in this district. So that is a big piece of keeping our teachers, is making sure that we are continuing to treat them with respect, to treat them with the professionalism that they bring to the table. Jim mentioned some of the excellence in 65% of our teachers having master's degrees. That says a lot about how they are developed in this district as well. I do think increasing diversity, but along with that is well-being and belonging, because if they don't feel like they belong here, they're not going to stay.
So the focus of my campaign is academic excellence. And on my website, it was the very first thing when I launched my website, I have said that in order to attract and retain teachers to get us back to being a beacon of academic excellence, I want teachers to be paid above market. So I am fully on board with the idea that we've got to pay for quality and to retain the quality that we have. And then secondarily, I would second what it is that is said here previously. We've got to have safe and working environments for teachers as well as the students. So the whole issue of bullying and aggressive behavior, that's not anything that a teacher deserves to worry about when he or she comes to school.
It has been said that small class sizes cover a multitude of sins. I just made that up. But as a classroom teacher, what I understand is the smaller the class size, the more I can meet the needs of each of my students. And so one of the things I propose is getting more paras in the classroom to break those classrooms up so that teachers can teach. At Mayo Clinic, the model is that there's a head physician that has quote-unquote paras that does the work, and they supervise that whole medical environment. So I like to do that. I also think it's extremely important that students see teachers that look like them. In many ways, when I think about the equity promise, we failed on that equity promise, but I do believe that there's optimism because those folks are out there if we build those relationships.
So, I mean, first of all, Edward, I still love you, just so you know. I think that teachers are the most, as a general profession, some of the most empathetic people there are. And what I've run into throughout talking to many, many people, including many, many teachers, is there's a general frustration with some of the changes that have been made with how they are allowed to grade now. If a kid fails a test, retake the test. If a kid gets 80% of the test right, retake the part that you missed. You tell it again, retake it again. It's more about memorization. The thing that our current grading system now excludes is extra credit. Let's say we agree that we want a kid to do really well. Would you rather have them memorize a test that they keep getting wrong until they get it right, or would you rather have them put in a little extra work and go above and beyond? how would we create a system that turns off the teacher's ability to reward a student who wants to go above and beyond? And we've done that now, and there's a lot of frustration with them. And so I think we need to listen to the teachers and also understand that some of the things that we're doing we think are beneficial may be actually harming our kids and their teachers' happiness.
Thanks. Do we have any current or former teachers in here? Yeah. You can raise your hand. You're a teacher too. Yeah, thank you. So teaching is a noble profession, right? But man, it's hard work. I am the son of a retired school teacher in the public school system, and that's where I got bit by the bug to teach, which I do today. I think starting with retaining teachers, we have to start with recruiting the best and the brightest. And to be able to do that when there's a national teaching shortages, we have to pay them competitive wages and benefits. Second, we have to create a safe environment. We talk a lot, and we're going to talk a lot this evening about safety in our schools, but it also has to be safe for them. I have a sister-in-law who teaches in the district. My mother-in-law retired after 30 years as a para at Irondale. So it's really hard work. So teaching is at the core of what we do. Those who teach know that it's difficult work, so we need to support them as we recruit them from all the other districts that are competing for the best and brightest teachers.
Thank you. Next question. What do you believe is the role of a school board member?
First of all, I don't know if you realize we're having a lot of fun up here. So we agree that we agree on about 50% of things, maybe more, but our kids are friends and we can have conversations about these hard things. I think to be a good school board member, you have to be able to talk about the hard topics, right? We're doing that today. You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to understand and see the other side. I know that certainly when I started going out asking questions, I had certain visions in my mind and things that I thought I was going to hear. But I heard different stories and I heard different ideas from our community, and it's definitely changed how I think about things. And we need our school board members to really connect with the community, to connect with our teachers, and then bring that together and really discuss it, to really dig deep into these issues. And I think that wasn't what I planned to say today. I was going to tell him all the ways he was failing, but I had a checklist up here and we were laughing. Yeah, we had a checklist. But I really do think that is how we can succeed. We have to dig deep into some of these issues.
Two-part answer for me. The boring answer is the statute. You know, school board members are responsible for what's in the state statute, which is managing the schools, adopting rules, setting policies, and prescribing the textbooks and the courses of study in 123B. There's another statute, setting the budget, curriculum programming, personnel, and operating procedures, yada, yada, yada. Those are the kinds of things that a school board member has to, address and be responsible for by statute. I'll give you the my answer. I think the most important thing that anybody can do in a governance role is to listen. And this is one of the reasons why shutting off public input at the regular school board meetings it's such a concern of mine. I know that the school board has informal discussions before the meeting, but that's not on the record, and it does not allow for broader awareness within the community. That's really important, and that's what I think is the responsibility of a school board member.
Thank you, Paul. I agree. I mean, a big part of our job is to look, listen, and learn. You have to reflect community values in decision making. It's important to be out and about in the community. I really make a big effort to go to the games, the plays, the farmers markets, those places, and have very informal discussions with folks, because I think they tell you a lot in those types of situations. But your job is to serve as a policymaker, not an implementer. We oversee a $170 million budget. The budget is the most important policy document that we do. You'll hear a lot about different things, but how we spend our time and how we spend our money is extremely, extremely important. We do set policy from everything for extracurriculars to recent policies on learning loss and school safety. We set your taxes, all that type of stuff. But, a big job is to hold our superintendent accountable. I have one employee that responds to me, that's the superintendent. If you ask me something, formally or informally, it'll usually end up in the superintendent's lap. He's accountable to our goals and timelines, and that's a very important part of the job, is holding him accountable.
I'm going to echo what Jim has said. Our role as board members is policy. It is not management of schools on the site level. I think that's really, really, really important to remember. We do not micromanage at the site level. We do not micromanage in the classroom. That is the responsibility of the administration on the site level. We will hold the, when I'm elected, hold the superintendent accountable, right? He is the board's one employee, and that is a really important thing to also understand. And then, of course, the budget. We've heard a lot about, smaller class sizes and increased paras and all of those things. And yes, we've got really great ideas. And we have to figure out where does that money come from, and I think that's something to think about.
So in my professional career, I was on governance committees, and I well understand the fact that governance committees are not operational. Getting into the operational weeds is not going to be part of the role. The role that I would have as a school board member would be to set goals for the enterprise, put into place policies that will help accomplish those goals, and then most importantly, make sure that the executive leadership team from the superintendent on down has the resources available to accomplish all of that. That's my view of a role of a school board member.
Gene Booker. Gene Booker. Gene Booker. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and Gene Booker was one of our board presidents when I was in high school. Gene Booker had a cabinet that she called the superintendent's cabinet and also the school board's cabinet. And Gene Booker made sure that leadership opportunities were made available to those young people that were a part of that cabinet. Guess who was a part of that cabinet? Me. And so when I think about my role is to repeat what Gene Booker modeled for me. And so making sure that student voice is heard at the board and at the board level is a primary example of how I can replicate what Gene did for me.
Yeah, and I think that the board is a policy governance board. It's supposed to make policy that is effective and can be used to hold people accountable, as has been said here. I just am a little bit surprised by that. On my website, millsmovement.com, I had a Sherlock Holmes voiced blog about the case of the missing school board, and I outlined that they haven't written a new policy since 2019. That was the electronic use policy. They haven't. The one prior to that was 2016. That was drone use. Other than Paul, who's a pilot, maybe nobody in this room has seen a drone. We didn't have a cell phone use policy from district-wide perspective that was effective. Mounds High School had to make their own in August of this year. I think that we have to make policy, and then we have to hold people accountable, and it has to be clearly measurable. If your proficiency scores are going down 15, 20%, maybe you shouldn't have a job. I like Chris Lennox. I've been very impressed with him. I've talked to him 100 times. But we need to hold him accountable, and that means if we're not delivering on test scores, it might be time to go.
So I think there's an important point about being elected to the school board that's often lost is we are or want to be an elected official. So our job is to represent what you think and what you want, whether you've had kids in the district, whether you have kids in the district now, whether you're a homeowner, as someone who teaches finance, the relationship between how good the school district is and your property values are very closely related. So I think the primary role of a board member is to promote open, transparent dialogue with all stakeholders, not just every couple of years around election time knocking on doors, but to create opportunities for all of you to participate in the future of our school system and by association the future of our community.
I'm not going to forget you.
Thank you, or not. I've served on the board for nearly a decade. What I would tell you is what you've heard, over the course of this response is all true. Policy Governance Board, the superintendent is our only employee. All of those things are true, and that's a big part of what the board is. So I'm going to cede my time from repeating that to speak to public engagement and the communication piece. And I think we're marginalizing the community if we think the only time that a board member is going to bring the insights of the community into policy decision-making is in a 30-minute period of time, whether it's on or off the record per se, whether it's before or after a meeting or during. I would tell you, I speak to people every single day. In fact, I've talked to people in this room in the last week. And I carry that into conversations with the superintendent, into the boardroom, into the decisions, into the places where decisions are made for the school district.
Okay, that's the end of round 2 questions. I think, Paul, you're up first, and here's the question. What do you believe are the major issues the school district is facing?
Well, I've already mentioned the two that are at the top for me are the physical safety, but the one I really want to stress is next is the academic achievement, and not as much the issues as where I think we could go with addressing some of the issues we're seeing there. We need to review and update our attendance policies, make sure kids are in classes, evaluate the effectiveness of the online classes. I've heard concerns about that. So are the online classes effective, and should students be in the teacher, the classroom environment? Reassess the homework policies. When I went to high school and college, I had a lot of homework every day, every week, and I see that slipping away from our students. Look at the grading and evaluation policies. I think those standards need to be readdressed, and put a spotlight in some of the areas like Pinewood. Can we put a recovery plan in place for Pinewood Elementary where the proficiencies are lower, reading hours, things like that? What can we do to lift the water there?
Issues the school district are facing. One is funding in the classrooms. We're very fortunate that recently we had the legislature actually help us with that. We've had about a 20-year period where we're held at inflation or below inflation, but it's very important that we keep our schools funded. Our district has been, our voters in this district have been very generous to us, by the way, and we've been rewarded with your votes to keep classroom sizes reasonable, keep our facilities top-notch. The issues that I look at right now is learning loss. I mean, I am not ignorant to any of the test scores going on out there. I really do think our learning loss program that we've implemented recently is going to be very strong. We will certainly hold people accountable. I'm very excited too that the state has funded more money for us to do a phonics-based reading program, so kids are ready by reading by 3rd grade. So I think those are the issues that really face us. It's classroom issues.
I am somebody who always builds on strengths. So the very first thing that I always do is look at what's right, and then look towards what we are aiming for. What do we want? And then we can work backwards to create that. That's a style of problem solving called appreciative inquiry. And it's really, really important as we look at the futures of these young people that we are collectively raising. One of the issues that we certainly are facing is a mental health crisis. And if your kids can't get up and go to school, it doesn't matter how rigorous the academics are, they're not going to do well. Same goes for our staff. If our staff is burnt out, they're not going to do well. So for me, that is the biggest thing that I think we're facing, as well as the pressure to make up that learning loss.
So I'm already on record as saying I'm concerned about academic proficiencies throughout all the grade levels, so that's certainly a major concern. The other issue that when I've explored the numbers, and these are data that are available on the Minnesota Department of Education website, there's definitely an east versus west division in terms of performance. And I'm concerned that the school board in its current form has taken a one-size-fits-all problem solving, and I would want to address that or at least revisit that concept. And then to reiterate what Paul had mentioned earlier, the homework concept, this idea of having mulligans, that doesn't exist in the real world. If the doctor takes out the wrong kidney, you don't give them a second chance. It's all about trying to get these kids adjusted and ready for the real world.
Fear, cynicism, and optimism. So one of the things I think is really important is I'm not going to take too many more beat-ups on Pinewood. Pinewood is one of the most diverse schools in the district. 50% of the kids, 55% of the kids are on free and reduced lunch. 17% of the kids are in special ed, 16% English is their second language. If we don't take those things into account as we talk about these test scores, then what are we talking about? When we talk about violence in schools, I want to know who is getting referred to these violence prevention programs, these progressive discipline programs. From my experience, more often than not, it's been kids of color who are referred to those programs. So if we want to talk about apples to apples, let's talk about apples and apples and stop with the dog whistles.
I think a dog whistle is suggesting that the black kids are referred more often and not the kid who punches somebody in the face. The kid who's punching is getting referred, but not in our district. We have 11 weapons in 21-22, 11 weapons reports. You have to report that by state law. You can't obscure it. It has to be reported. But we only have 64 total incidents. Rob Reitz had a recent video where he said there were 26 fights at Mounds View last year, 22 up front the first 80 days, 4 the last 80 days. Well, if you kind of measure that out, it would mean that there's only 3 fights reported for the entire rest of the district. I know it's different years, but what's going on? Why aren't we reporting that? The people who should get reported for progressive discipline are the people who are violating the discipline rules. Whether you're black or you're white, it doesn't matter. You should be punished if you break the rule. This is not a hard concept, and suggesting that it is I think, a regressive statement.
So I think issues and opportunities are two sides of the same coin. I echo some of the concern because I have a vested interest. I have 4 kids in 4 different schools. So the safety, not just the physical safety, but the emotional safety, a place where they can go and feel comfortable to learn and do their best work every single day. I think towards the end of this, we're going to talk about the SROs, which I had to do some research on where we were in the policy. But I also think an issue is we need to make sure that our teachers and staff have all the resources that they need. A teacher should never, ever have to buy their own supplies and bring them in the classroom. When I do the initial meet and greet with teachers at the beginning of the semester, I ask them, do you need anything for your classroom? Oh yeah, we've got an Amazon list right here if you wouldn't mind. So it's, it's pens and pencils and crayons. That should never happen. So I know that like 76% of the money is going into teaching, but it ain't going into supplies. So that needs to be addressed for our teachers. Another great way to recruit the best and brightest.
I'd say academic achievement, equity, and mental health. So we've talked about learning loss today from the pandemic. We know that exists. It's national. We're outpacing some districts across the state and country with regards to closing that gap. We need to do better. We know that this district looks different today than it did 10, 20, 30 years ago, certainly different than it looked like when my wife and I graduated from the school district. And we need to respond to that. We need to respond to the changing demographics, not just racial, but socioeconomic, across all demographics. And mental health. Far before the pandemic, we were facing a crisis. 2 high schools that were facing a rash of suicides. A board directive to really focus and double down on supports for mental health for our students and increasingly for our staff. And the pandemic has compounded that. So we need to double down on that. We need to invest in that. And we need to make sure that we're supporting every single person that's connected to our schools.
I feel like I've forgotten the question at this point. Goodness gracious. I want to talk a little bit about safety. No surprise there with me, sorry. I'm sorry, but student being punched in the face or choked till they're turning purple, I think we need to describe that. Because when that happens, these students are back in class the next day. That is unacceptable to me. I do not care what skin color they are. I do not care what socioeconomic class they come from. They cannot be back. It needs to be sent a message loud and clear that this is unacceptable. Do we need to address the repeat offenders and say, is there something more going on here? Do we need to find out if they need additional support? Absolutely. But we need a message that is very strong that I am sending my kid to school assuming that he does not have to find a group of older kids to keep him safe. Because that is what's going on in our schools, and I can tell you that from personal experience. I have my son and his group of friends protecting some of the 6th graders who are being choked in the boys' locker room. Unacceptable, needs to be addressed.
Okay, the last question focused on issues. Now we're going to change. We're going to talk about opportunities. So the next question is, what do you believe are the opportunities the district is finding?
Well, we have a lot of opportunities because our foundation's very strong in the district. I think there's a big opportunity out there to focus on early childhood. We've talked about equity. I think we really have to have a lot more focus on early childhood. We have 500 full seats in this district. The legislature's funded more. We need to pay more attention to early childhood and get kids ready to read or ready to learn by kindergarten. Also, I think we have, as I mentioned earlier, a strong state program that's really going to look at reading and try to incorporate phonics into our reading program, and so kids will have a stronger reading scores by third grade. I think that a big opportunity is attacking this learning loss intervention through teacher and para evaluations. Also, I think there's a big opportunity with career pathways to look at trades, and once again, I'm very proud of our Anoka Ramsey Community College program.
I don't know how many of you have ever taken the StrengthsFinder profile, the Clifton Strengths profile. It's my favorite, and I use that in my day-to-day work. My number one strength theme is futuristic. My number 3 is positivity, and so that's where I'm always looking, is where are the opportunities? What can we do? I don't have the deep insight to the budget yet. But one of the things that we can do, actually there's 3 things that I want to focus on with regards to opportunities that can be very inexpensive or even free, right, is communication and information access. If you don't know what resources or supports are available to you, you can't use them, right? So how can we do a better job communicating in an effective way for families and community members? Also, well-being and belonging. We know by research that for every $2.63 for every dollar that we spend on well-being, we save $2.63 on interventions, and that is important.
So on my website, I talk a little bit about industrial arts and how it is I'd like to reintroduce shop class into the 7th and 8th grades. We have now vocational training for welders and automotive, but I would like to go a step back. 7th and 8th grade shop class was, for me, formative. The safety techniques that I learned back in 7th and 8th grade, I'm still using in my own shop. And in fact, I've got a picture of, my wife took a picture of me in my workshop showing exactly that. I've got all the tools that I used back in 7th, or learned how to use back in 7th and 8th grade. And I think that's an opportunity that needs to be explored to reopen that venue for our kids.
So we have an opportunity for what I call common sense education. And simply, it is recognizing that there are multiple educational pathways that we should be preparing our students for. And so whether that is shops and skills and trades, as well as 2-year and 4-year education. We also have the opportunity to maximize restorative practices in our school that encourage kids to take personal responsibility and build character. We also have the opportunity for inclusive environments. We have folks from all over the world who are in our schools and in our communities that we can capitalize on by even creating micro academies within our school that capitalize on their gifts. And then lastly, this idea of honest education, giving educational opportunities that cause students to think critically about the world.
Yeah, I think that we're looking for an opportunity to kind of fix some of the things that we may see as wrong, at least some of us. And one of those things I mentioned in my opening, although it may have gotten garbled, is I want to find a way to get the community involved and charities involved to have ice cream and book reading nights at libraries and community centers like this. Getting kindergartners and first graders and second graders, especially, out early, getting those young Somali kids and young Hmong kids out, getting them fired up to do that. Maybe play a game afterwards. Getting volunteers to do that. Give them a night out, that's based around reading, but it was also fun for them, so they're going to want to go do it. We have to engage that more vigorously because the numbers are bad, and I get that there are reasons for it, but we haven't done enough to make them better, and we can. This is a community that certainly can, so we should.
So I'll talk about two opportunities. So my entire adult life, since I've been working, I've seen kids, whether we were training them to fight and win wars in the Army, whether I was interviewing for a job in the private sector, or whether they're coming into my classroom. So I see the byproduct of how well our schools do. And I think we're doing a good job in Mounds View School District. I think we could do better. Jim mentioned the pathways that we have, career pathways. These are really good. These are online, and it's to get, high school kids ready to start thinking about what do you want to be when you grow up. I have appealed to powers that be that, there's welding, there's construction, automotive, liberal arts, all great stuff. Do you know what the fastest growing profession or group of professions in the United States is, and including this area? Who works in healthcare? It's healthcare. So back in 2022, I conceived and helped organize the first career fair, high school career fair at Mounds View and Irondale for healthcare. So we had Mayo Clinic, we had United Health Group, largest insurance company in the world, we had EMS and fire. So preparing these folks. The last thing I'm going to say, I've been watching and all the discussions, I'm just going to say one word, Laurentians. What is going on with Laurentians? How many of you been to Laurentians? I was a chaperone there. There were kids who had never been out in the woods. I'm like, you live in Minnesota, you've never been in the forest before? Like the first time away from home. So I'd like to see the Laurentians get open back up. I know the district still owns it.
All right, so many opportunities, but only a minute, so I'll stick to two. And I think, one of them is our College of the Schools, one of the first schools in the country to introduce, college-level programming in our buildings. This past year, $4.2 million of college credit equivalent received by Mounds View and Irondale students, right? So dollars that their families didn't have to pay. In fact, a number of students that received an AA degree from Anoka Ramsey Community College while receiving their high school diploma. Huge deal. The second opportunity is something that is actually coming to me on the campaign trail, and it's in this room. It's all of you. It shouldn't be lost to any of us that there are 100 people in this room tonight on a beautiful fall evening to hear about the district and this community, and we need to do a better job of leveraging that collective impact, that collective interest, and the collective experience that all of you have.
I definitely agree with that, and I'd love to say I have all these brilliant ideas, but what I've learned is that my ideas are not big enough. It is from the community that we can come up with the best ideas, like he's just saying. I think several people have mentioned it up here. And sorry, Pinewood keeps getting poked. I think that there's just concern. Having third graders be able to read is really important. And I think we want to dig in and find how can we help, right? We realize the school composition there may vary from Turtle Lake, and so therefore we may need different solutions. And I think that's why we're digging into it, saying, hey, what are we thinking about here? Why aren't we approaching it? And when speaking with many folks in the Mounds View community, they had amazing ideas to collaborate with the school. And so I think we must do better in our communications, starting with opening up public forums so people can hear each other speak in the community, and then going into the community and making it more receptive and easier for those community members to come out and give us those ideas, because only with that can we really turn things around in some of these difficult situations beyond what we could imagine.
At a previous forum, I talked about some of the difficulties I had in my family when I was 16, losing a brother to suicide. And mental health was a big issue in my family with two people in particular. I ended up staying with friends, and in fact, one of those friends' children is here tonight, so thank you for coming. I'm not going to embarrass you. But what I think when I looked at this question, I really thought about my own life and how do I relate to this question, and it is really around mental health. If we can turn mental health around, when I had a stable environment, my grades improved. I was able to go to college and get a good GPA. In high school, I had 49 percentile standing in my class. And so our biggest opportunity is to improve mental health, which will lead to improved learning and lead to more success at school to help these kids graduate and be ready for life. That's what I think is the most important part of addressing, the opportunities.
Now, many of you have alluded to increasing the engagement with the community. So that's where our next question is. So you get another minute to talk about that. How will you engage the community and the schools to improve the district?
One of the core values in my business is gathering the collective wisdom. The collective will always supersede the intelligence of a few, which is why decisions shouldn't be made in an echo chamber. It should be made with diverse thought, diverse background, diverse experiences. And so when we think about how do we gather that collective wisdom, there's a barrage of ideas, and I want to. I do want to engage more. We actually have one of our mayoral candidates from Mounds here tonight, Zach Lindstrom, and he does coffee with the community every Sunday morning. And I love that. It's such a great opportunity to meet the community. So there's lots of ideas, lots of ways to do it. Let's gather the collective wisdom.
So I've been out door knocking. When you're retired, you get lots of opportunities to do that, and I've learned a lot in interacting with residents. So I know that community engagement is important, and one of the things that I'd like to address, if I'm on the school board, is opening up the microphone so that anybody who comes to a school board meeting can be on the record. All the comments, whether they're good or bad, can be part of the public record. For the last 2 years, the school board has closed off that opportunity. They do have, of course, these informal chit-chats before the official meeting, but none of that belongs to the public record. I think in a democracy, the public record is important, and community engagement is critical. So that would be one of my first actions, is to open up school board meetings to public record.
Go to where people are. Please raise your hand if you've ever attended a meal at Pinewood and you're sitting at this table prior to the time that we did our introduce ourselves to the community. Please raise your hand if you've ever had a meal at Pinewood. We talk a good game, but do we go to where people are? We have the statistics. How many folks have volunteered at this? I'm going to stop. Go to where people are.
And again, I agree with that. We agree, had the same question at the League of Women in Minnesota. You need to go where people are. And exactly as he said, I'm new to politics. I'm new to volunteering. I'm new to being involved because it's never been that important to me until I started seeing the drastic declines and the incredible wide gap between the two. So yes, some of the ideas I have are going to be new for me, first time for me. That doesn't mean they're any less valid or any less valuable, right? You don't disagree with going into Pinewood and sitting down and having a meal. I want to go as a school board member and go into Pinewood and talk to parents, talk to kids, and talk to teachers, and then bring that back to board meetings. I also agree with opening up the board meetings to the public for a little bit of yelling. If they want to yell, they can yell. Andre may come and yell at me. But the point is that you have to go where they are, and I agree with that completely. Yeah, so that's all.
So I said it before, I mean, elected officials are here to represent you. I like what Andre said about, rather than you come to the meeting and you have to submit your questions in advance, go out to where folks are. So I've been doing what I call listening tours, talking to folks because I have 4 kids in 4 different schools. Any given night of the week, I'm at 1, sometimes 2 sporting event, meet, concert, show. So I've been asked, how do you think the school district's doing? What would you do to improve it? So kind of a grassroots to understand what the issues are. So my thinking has evolved from being, I hate to say just a parent, but a parent with a very narrow perspective to, we've got a really good school district, but there's opportunities for improvement by listening to what folks have to say. And not just folks that have kids in the district, but folks that have been in the district, raised in the district, have homes in the district. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and I've learned and evolved by listening to folks and what they had to say by just being out in the community. So.
I can't disagree with anything anybody said here. I think it's all of the above. As a board member, I've had the opportunity to have hundreds of coffees a year. During the 18 months of the heart of the pandemic, responded to 4,172 emails, taking phone calls at all hours of the night. My cell phone number is 651-238-6043. It's on my website. Call, text. I mean it. Like as board members, it's our job to meet the community where they're at, whether it's in a community space like this, whether it's at a coffee shop, whether it's at a dinner, whether it's in a public forum before, during, or after a meeting. It is all of the above.
I started off by saying I'm very passionate, and that passionate came from the community members that I've spoken with. I'm also trying very hard to be kind and positive up here. But this is an area where I feel we need to speak truth. It's not happening right now. Talking to our community members, they do not feel like they have a voice. Okay? So as much as we can say we want to do all these things and current board members are doing these things, our community does not feel it. Our parents do not feel it. We live in Minnesota where people are non-confrontational, right? So we do need to make it comfortable for them. But currently the situation we have is not working and the community is unhappy. The majority of people would like their voices heard, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, and that's one of the reasons I have the passion is the stories I'm hearing. Those things they want to bring forward and aren't comfortable or don't feel they have the space to do so. That's why I want to bring that.
I think it all starts with active listening. There's multiple paths for communication. You can have sensing sessions and one-on-ones and surveys and such. There's a number of things that should be applied. They're just standard practices in corporations and nonprofit organizations. So I think there's many different things that can be done. I did talk to a teacher a couple months ago and asked her, what is your view of the administration and school board? She goes, I don't know what they do. I don't see the superintendent except on the first day of class. So that was those are her words and not mine. So I think we need to really get more presence in the schools for the leaders. And then 2 questions I always like to ask, what's going well, what could be different? Those are very powerful questions and I've got really good feedback. And again, for me, it comes back to active listening, talk to the people, go where they are. I do agree with that. And over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Paul. As a school board member, I think we all agree we have to be out in the community. I've met with several of you in the audience with coffees. I've sat in people's living rooms, discussed things with you. There's a whole lot of things we do. I'm very proud of our outreach to local businesses. We have 40 local businesses that give internships to our high school students. That doesn't happen by sitting in a chair and ignoring things. Our school board members were all assigned to PTAs. I've been to Pinewood and Valentine Hills PTA meetings over the past 4 years, and we look and listen and talk to our parents. And I'll just give an example. We do have a new cell phone policy this year, and how does that happen? We listen to parents. We listen to our teachers. We did a parental survey at the start of the year in Mounds, so we heard a parent voice. Surveys is something we do a lot with parents, and we get great feedback, and I think we ended up with a good policy because we listened to our parents.
Okay, next question. As I went through these questions, I thought, man, we're throwing them a lot of softballs. So here's one that's not quite so soft. The police departments and sheriff departments have in general pulled their school resource officers from schools because of laws passed during the last state legislative session. Because of concern over officer and city and counties being sued due to interaction between the officers and the students, where do you stand on the policies of SROs?
So the school resource officer, that whole conundrum came about through the recent legislation, and I'm in general disappointed at the way our school board responded. Now, the good news is that because of the Attorney General's opinion, things have now been restored, so the school resource officers are now fully intact the way they were prior to that legislation being enacted. But I think the school board could have done a much better job of exercising leadership during those periods of time when there was uncertainty as to whether or not the school resource officers were even going to be on hand. For a time there, 2/3 of our schools didn't have full school resource officer coverage. They had just drive-by patrols taking place. And at the end of the day, I wish our school board had responded differently.
I want to say for the city of Mounds View, I'm really pleased at how our chief responded to a pretty sticky wicket. It was a tough spot to be in, not wanting to let the community down, but also having some concerns themselves. So I really appreciate the chief for doing that. I believe that the real question is, what is the purpose and what is the mission of police officers in schools? So if it is to arrest kids because teachers can't control what's happening in the classroom, I'm not for that. If it is that they are a part of the community of educators in the school, I'm for that.
Yeah, I think that the question that you've asked was kind of conceived during the kind of gray area where we weren't sure what was happening, whether there's going to be drive-bys or part patrols or whatever else. But I think it's largely been ironed out at this point in time. I'm for school resource officers being in school. They weren't in school when I was a kid, but also we didn't have every bathroom locked when I was a kid. Why are we locking all the bathrooms? All right, there's a reason. So there's probably a reason why we centralize and funnel people to a specific area. So if somebody does act in a way that they're not supposed to, there is an adult who can handle that in a way that they're trained to handle it, where a teacher doesn't have to. We don't want to put that on teachers. We don't want to put that on staff. And so I think that the SRO has to be there. I think that the SRO has to be friendly. I've seen videos of retiring SROs who did wonderful little dance numbers with the kids. They should be fun, they should be friendly, they should be respected, but they also should be taken seriously. And that's why we have them there, and I'm glad that they're back.
I may give up some of my time because I was hoping one of the current board members would address what the current policy is. I went on a bunch of websites because I knew this was going to be a question, and I couldn't find anything on the board website, on the school website. I mean, on what the policy is. It looks like they're being reinstated, but it's hit and it's missed. We haven't signed a contract. I absolutely hate that my kids do active shooter drills. I absolutely hate it. I'll give my age away. I never did an active shooter drill, but I did like a duck and cover under my desk in case of a nuclear attack. Put your head between your legs and do whatever comes next. I hate that they have to do this, but it's a sign of the times. I'm a gun owner, but when there's danger in a school, I like that, and I like the term resource. They're not there to police. They're there. So my little one, my 7-year-old, sees when her SRO is there as an asset, as a friend, and they see the value of community policing. So I think they should be there, and I'd like to, again, if I could give 10 more seconds, I'd love to hear what are we doing with this, because I couldn't find any information from the school website on if we're signing a contract for the SROs.
I think I'd start by saying I'm disappointed to hear that there's a candidate that's disappointed with how the school board has managed this and didn't bother to call or reach out to the school board. He now has my number, and I hope he does that. I've been longtime supportive of the SROs. As we've heard this, in this state and nationally, kind of this push and pull of should we have police in the building. This board has been committed to ensuring that we keep our SROs in the building. They're critical community partners. They're critical for safety. They're critical for our communities. And we did go through a period of time where we had some challenges with our 3 partners in Mounds View, New Brighton, and Ramsey County as they wrestled through this new legislative change. We through our district organization, MSD, have worked with the legislature to ensure that that policy gets adjusted to make sure that we keep these resources in the buildings. But I'm really proud of the fact that we've kept them in the building. They're in the buildings today, and all the way along the road, we continued that line of communication with this partnership.
I personally am really excited that they're all back, but I have to tell you, most of us were scrambling today to find out, were they all back? We couldn't find the information. I knew about Mounds View because I'd had coffee with our wonderful city councilman and knew that they were involved in working on that, so I knew that. And I saw the article, but you're pull up the article now, aren't you? It was just hard to decipher. So I wish they would have made an announcement because it's really powerful. I do think they're such a resource in our schools, and I think the kids, it does give them a sense. I've asked my own kids, it does make them feel safer. They do really like their presence there. I think the parents in the community it should be a huge announcement. There was one. He's pulling up now, I bet. But trying to make it really easy. I mean, it would be nice to just, we talk about communications with the community and parents and family, just make a straightforward, they're back in every school, congratulations, all the hard work, even pat yourself on the back. You're like, hey, they're back. So I just go back to the communication on that, but yes, hallelujah, they're back.
A lot of good points have been made. SROs should be in school, absolutely. I think the media and the district communications are still catching up to that, which, I respect that. The Minnesota State Legislature is where this really needs to get addressed, and we need to appeal to our legislators to fix this in the next legislative cycle, to reinstate the liability protection for SROs in the school for criminal and civil protection. So that's what happened and caused this disruption at the beginning of the year. So really this needs to go back to the state legislature, and the school board needs to lobby for that in the next cycle.
Thank you. I support SROs in the school. I always have supported SROs in the building. It's a great tool to build community trust. You don't want your kid's first experience with a police officer to be in the back of a squad car. We have worked with our local police departments, Mounds, New Brighton, and our Ramsey County Sheriff to deliver a quality community-oriented product. Our officers are just really great folks to interact with our kids. During this difficult time, just to be clear, the New Brighton Police always stayed in their buildings. Ramsey County Sheriff and Mounds U were concerned about the liability. We work closely with their departments. I also see people say we didn't. I personally lobbied Representative Moeller. I personally lobbied Senator Gustafson. I talked to her a half dozen times. Majority Leader Dietzich to find a solution to these legislative difficulties. What I felt was bad is that this got caught up in a whole ideology, a bunch of ideological arguments, and nobody cared about the kids.
One of the I love our peace officers, our SROs that are at the school. They are some of the most wonderful, supportive human beings. And for our kids to be able to have that kind of experience with an officer is a really important and positive one. So I absolutely support SROs being in the building. As well, if somebody with nefarious intentions rolls up to a school and there is a squad car out front, it is a deterrent, and that is important. And we don't have to tell you the day and age that we live in with regards to safety. We want those deterrents. And again, it's about these relationships that these officers are building with our kids, so that those experiences can be really, really positive, and they can actually feel like they're an important part, a supportive part of the community.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the not so canned questions. And are you going to pick them for me?
There's so many good ones here that I'm so sorry we don't have one. Take this one.
Okay. Dang, I was so.
Can we get some of those questions and respond to those maybe on our websites?
Yeah, we should give them to you. Yeah.
Okay. President Jody, you need to assign that to a lion to transcribe these questions. Okay. What about banning books?
So yeah, and I hear the groans, right? Like, I don't think that that folks really want to ban books, right? We're not Luddites like that. I do think that people have concerns, mostly because there's not clear communication about what is being taught, right? And so the easiest thing is to block something. We know about what happens with prohibitions on things. It just makes it sexier, right? Alcohol, weed, whatever. And so I don't think that that's really the question. I think the question we should be asking is, why do people want books banned? And finding out what is the motive behind those. And oftentimes we don't have forums for folks to actually talk about those things in ways that lead us to some real conversation that allow them to be heard.
Yeah, we had the same question at the League of Women's Voters recently, so I can safely say, I haven't heard your answer, but no one on the stage wants to ban books. If anybody on the stage wants to ban books, don't vote for them. So if you want to, you're in trouble. Look, it's just not a thing. I'm a former journalist. I'm anti-censorship. I want more things exposed than anyone in this room wants exposed, trust me. But that's because I'm dumb. You have to allow the children to be exposed to very controversial items and topics in a way that they can process, learn, discuss, debate, and then go to other adults they trust and ask questions about. You want it to be age appropriate. You don't want to have, if you have 1 or 2 advanced calculus books in your 3rd grade library, not in your high school library. Obviously, you want to put it up there. But you want to make sure kids are exposed as much as possible and given a chance to debate, learn, grow, and experience the world.
So I'm a college teacher. My best friend is a librarian, so banning books is never a good thing. But I've given this a lot of thought because it's come up like where do we ban books? I was thinking, well, it's not like a movie, right? It's not like a PG-13 or an R-rated where the parents have discretion over, should you go to this movie? There may be an F-bomb here or there. So I think really an approach to this is the teachers develop a curriculum. It's an evidence-based curriculum. Keep religious and political ideologies out of it. Their job is tough enough as it is. Share that with the parents. And if the parent decides, okay, let me take a look at this. Do I think my child is ready for this? Do I want to have a conversation with them first? Because my wife and I, she does most of the talking. I just sit there and look embarrassed. When they have the human sexuality class, so I have 3 girls and a boy, but we're prepared for that, and we're part of working with our teachers and their curriculum to do that. That's a parent's choice to do that, but definitely never ban books. But parents should have some involvement if they choose to say, do I want my kid reading this book or not? And they can say, look, they don't have to read it in school. That's their choice. It's not banning books between the parents and the teachers.
I had to have the talk on a trip to the Boundary Waters with my boys. Too much information.
We can talk about that later. Tough act to
It
follow.
was 4 hours.
I'm a no on banning books. I hear a lot about parental rights in this campaign, and we have those in the school district. If you don't want your kid to read a book, your kid doesn't have to read a book. If you don't want your kid to take a class, your kid doesn't have to take a class. That's been the history of this school district. It will continue to be the history of this school district as long as I have an opportunity to serve.
It's 2023. Nobody wants to ban books and clear out our libraries, that's for sure. And I'm pretty sure everyone up here agrees, so that's pretty straightforward. But I think we can all agree, too, that we want our books to be age appropriate. And it really comes down to the parents deciding what they think is age appropriate and where they're at with their child and their development. You talked a little bit about opting out. It really isn't that easy. In the discussions I've had with people in the community, trying to opt out means you have to leave the class, or trying to opt out, it's a little bit complicated. So I think we just need to be more clear on that. We have books rated as young adult, and they recommend that they talk to the parent, but I as a parent was never told that. So it's just a communication thing. If we already have that, I would love to be told that so I could talk to my daughter about that. So I think there's a couple ways we could improve with some of the systems we have in place to really tie in the parents. I think we should focus on doing those things.
I'm a strong supporter of the First Amendment, and the idea of book banning is not acceptable to me either. For me, it's about age-appropriate material, and it's tied to the curriculum. And as far as the curriculum itself, it should be a transparent process, and participated by the specialists along with the people in the community that can provide input, like the parents. And if there is a concern, to listen to the concern and bring it forward and try to be as transparent as possible about that so that people feel like they're being heard.
Thanks, Paul. The answer is no. Kids need the freedom to learn and explore things. I also agree with Art. We can't totally stay away from controversial things. Our society is very polarized right now. We have to have difficult conversations, and we also have to work with our students and our teachers to teach people to have these conversations in a very civil way so you can agree without being disagreeable. I think we learn a lot from each other. I've learned a lot from this campaign from everybody out here. So I think that we have to keep the lines of communication open and let kids learn and explore.
There's not much that I can say that hasn't already been said, but the freedom to learn is really important. Diversity of thought, even if it's thought you don't agree with, is really valuable. And having conversations around those disagreements is a skill, especially in Minnesota with all of our Minnesota nice y'all. Like, we really need to learn how to have those difficult conversations, and teaching that skill in school is a really, really good thing. We have professionals who develop curriculum. We have professionals who are experts in child development. And as a parent, I know my child best, and I know what my child may or may not be ready for. And thus, I do get to opt them out if I say, for one reason or another, I'm not sure my kid is ready for this yet. And that is a right, as Jonathan said, that parents will always have in this district as long as he's on the board. And if I were to get on the board, that would be the same for me as well.
So I am not at all a proponent of book banning. I've got a finance background, and the only thing I would ask as it applies to purchasing books is the same thing I would ask as it applies to purchasing any other resource for the school, that we have a judicious spending policy in place that basically addresses how it is we're spending our money. But book banning, that's not anything I'm an advocate of.
Okay. Yeah, since the government has set aside money for experimenting with electric school buses, should Mounds View apply for one?
So you guys really should have watched the last debate. We had this exact same thing, so I'm gonna tell you the exact same thing. I own an incredible number of Tesla shares, and if it's a Tesla bus, absolutely, so I can retire sooner. Right, I mean, look, the world's going electric. I believe, and I'm aggressive on this, you won't have an internal combustion engine vehicle sold in America past 2030 that isn't a heavy-duty vehicle. It's happening faster than people realize. When the buses are ready, we absolutely must. And if we're not, well, someone has to explain why not. It's just better technology. It's cleaner ultimately. It's maybe bad for a generation, but it becomes cleaner as recycling comes in. But it's a good technology. It's very good. I understand it well, and I own a lot of Tesla shares. So please buy a Tesla.
I mean, is the question, if the government's going to pay for it, if we're going to get a grant for it, then absolutely. I mean, this is a very eco-friendly state. I mean, we're eventually going there. I don't know if it's 2030. I mean, we're still very much dependent upon oil and combustion engines, but I mean, we're going that way, and I think it's the right thing. These provide great jobs for kids coming out of school, high-tech jobs, good-paying jobs. So if we're going to get a grant to do it, then yeah, absolutely, have at it.
She wants me to do one word. Generally, yes. The school district doesn't own any buses. We contract with a provider. So I think in partnership with that provider, it's a conversation to have as we look at our contracts into the future, which we'll be going into very soon.
Same, conditional that they actually work and funding. I know that busing is a kind of a funding suck in dealing with the superintendent, and it's a constant struggle. So if there's some way that we do get some extra funding and it's a way to help us not have to take money out of our general fund to put into busing, that would be great.
Like any other major change, I'd want to see the business case and then the technical proposal that comes with it. What are the trade-offs? There are some benefits. I think there's some, possible merit in hybrid type of, electric vehicles. But again, I'd have to see the business case, the technical proposal before I would commit to a yes or no or maybe.
Yes, I think we're going to move towards electric buses. I think we all have to be aware it's going to be a long time before we get there. It's basically the technology is there, the manufacturing base is not quite there yet. Federal grants, in my experience of being 3.5 years on the school board, are complex, complicated, weighted towards certain things. It's great when the money shows up, but you can't always count on it. What I'd really like to focus on is we've just invested in a substantial millions of dollars on new infrastructure for heating and air conditioning in our schools. It'll be modern, it'll be efficient, it'll be good for the environment, it'll save us money. 11 of our 12 schools have solar. We're doing that right now.
So electric buses is not something that I spend a lot of daily time reading about. Electric is our future. I think we know that. Again, it needs to be stated that our school district does not own any of our buses. So I think that's a nuance that we need to take into consideration as well. My kids will probably be bused to school in an electric bus, and the fiscal responsibility that we have is an important piece of when we do that. And if we're going to apply for a federal grant, for instance, what ties come with that? Like, what strings are attached to that? And I think that needs to be fleshed out as well.
So I don't believe that the technology is currently in place. So until such time that the technology is caught up, and until such time that the cost-benefit analysis makes sense, I'm on hold with the idea of an electric bus. But I'm totally open to the idea once those things come into the picture. In the meantime, if we're looking for buses that don't have a big carbon footprint, there are buses that burn hydrogen, and maybe that would be an alternative that we could explore if we want to reduce our carbon footprint.
I'd say no, not yet. And the other thing that I'm more interested in is having a conversation about stewardship policies that the board is undertaking, like green buildings and sustainable agriculture. I know that at my daughter's school, they are feeding pigs with the leftover food. I think broader policies of stewardship will actually lead us to whatever carbon emissions or ESG scores we want to get, whatever. But I think just real pragmatic approaches in school buses should be a part of that calculation.
So you're
Do you start? Yeah, you help. You hang on to this then. Okay, what do you got next? We're good. I think this is the last one, right? It's an easy one. Okay. Yeah, help me read this.
Do you support the Pledge of Allegiance in school?
I don't need a minute to answer that. Yes. So,
lightning round.
So I'm a military veteran, so I appreciate the sacrifice that veterans and non-veterans make for our flag. I'm the guy that will go when I'm driving by the schools and I'm picking my kids up or dropping them off. If the flag is tattered, I'll politely email or call the principal and say, hey, it's time to replace the flag. So definitely the Pledge of Allegiance in our school.
I think Rich said it perfect.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes, hey, let's go do it together. Let's go.
Okay, where's the flag? We got time for one more.
I got one here.
How often is the pledge said now? Every Tuesday, once a week. Yep.
Okay, next question. What is your definition of DEI and why is it important? You got the easy flag one.
Yeah, for me, diversity, equity, and inclusion is meeting people where they're at. And I think we've talked a lot about the different buildings, the different challenges, the different needs that we have across a really complex system with 11,000 students. Every student needs something different, just like every one of my kids needs something different. So we talk about Pinewood, and I've heard 10 times today, let's not pick on Pinewood. Pinewood receives 5 times more needs-based support than some other buildings across our district because the building needs the support. They've got the lowest average class sizes because the building needs the lowest average class sizes. So for me, equity and inclusion is all about meeting people where they're at, making sure that they have what they need, when they need it, and how they need it.
That's basically what I was going to say, but I was going to use the word each student, addressing what each student individually needs and meeting them. And so Pinewood's a good example of, like I said before, we may not know their needs and cannot assume it's going to be the same as Turtle Lake. So every child and family should walk through the door feeling embraced with everything they need to succeed and get to their own success. And that's what it means to me.
For me, I think about equality and equity together. Equality is every student has a chance to succeed and to advance and to be ready to go into life from graduate from high school. And equity is about making sure that they have the resources and the support they need to get there. And there can be variations in what level of support is needed, but it's for each and every student in the school.
I think equity is about giving every kid a chance, and part of that is the individual attention that we give each of our kids in our school district. I think also feeling you belong. Connectedness to our schools are very important. I'm very proud of our leadership with our principals and our staff, that they really push connectedness, that kids can feel that they belong. We have all sorts of clubs with various interests from people with various points of view. And I also want to look at equity in the school. As I mentioned earlier, early childhood's important to me. That kids that might start out a little behind can catch up pretty quick. I also think that equity, I look at our early college program. We had a lot of kids taking our AP classes. Irondale won an award last week for AP classes, but we moved to early college because there was a segment of kids who weren't taking that. And now those kids are earning associate's degrees. We had 17 last year, hundreds of credits, and they have a pathway to college, and I believe that is a very important issue, that people have a chance to find a job and move to college.
Diversity is one of my favorite things to talk about because that's where the juice is. That's where the richness is in our community, is when we can surround ourselves with people who do not look like us, think like us, act like us, and have different cultural backgrounds, right? When we can genuinely see through somebody else's lens, that diversity makes us better. And that, in the business world, is not a nice to have. It is a business imperative. Equity is about removing barriers to success. And inclusion is really, really important. But DEI doesn't do what it needs to do unless we have the B, which is belonging. And so we can't just check boxes here, y'all. We also need to really make sure and measure the belonging of each and every student.
Well, my view is that the success of our educational enterprise is going to be dependent on giving the teachers the ability to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of each individual student. And that doesn't matter what that student's gender is, what the sexual orientation of that student is, what the religion is, what the economic circumstances are. At the end of the day, I want the teachers to feel empowered to customize a plan to bring out the best in each individual student.
I don't agree with most of the things that I've heard about DEI. I'm a bit more of a pragmatist, and I believe what is good for AP classes and what's good for special ed classes should be good enough for general classes. And one of the features of both AP classes and special ed classes is their small sizes and their direct instruction. And so if we want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I want to talk about the pragmatic way that we address those things and what we're going to do about some of these diversity, equity, and inclusion concepts that everybody can agree with, but how does it play out?
Yeah, hi. I mean, I think that the way Jonathan just spoke about giving money to Pinewood is a very equitable, right answer. It's not equal, but it's equitable. And equitable means they have results that require more money. That makes sense. He didn't say that it's group identity based, that because they have 38% more blacks or 14% more gays or 13% more women, that they get more money. And unfortunately, we see in our society now, and it's in our 2020 Equity Promise, where we have group identity based equity thoughts. And that's completely wrong. I also don't think we have a belonging issue in our school, certainly not a measurable one. We have a reading issue in our school. And that's where the money should go. And kids' families are very high on the schools. They feel like the teachers care. They feel like they matter. Where we're struggling is the basics. And so let's focus on that.
So I'll take the E of the DEI and I'll just share and relate how I make sense of it with two examples, an older one and a newer one. So I'm a Head Start kid. I have a learning disability. And if I hadn't been given that Head Start, that federal program that started in the 70s, I know you are too, Andre. Thank you, Head Start. I wouldn't be sitting here today with all of these great folks. I have a 12-year-old with Down syndrome in a level 3 program at Chippewa. So equity, equality is everybody gets treated the same. If he was treated the same as every other kid, he would fall farther behind. So he's given extra opportunities like I was as a Head Start kid. So we have to have both. But the equality in our school district is one of the strengths. And it's one of the reasons why we moved up here about 12 years ago. The programs for kids with special needs are superior to most places in the country. You may not be aware of that. Minnesota is the leader for special education. So I thank all the special education teachers and the paras. So.
Okay, candidates, we're on the home stretch. You get your 2 minutes. One. Oh, man. She does? Okay. He just wants to close, that's all.
Well, this has been really fun, I think, tonight, actually. I honestly feel like we're all really getting to know each other now at this point. But I'm going to just stick to the core things. We need kids that can read at grade level. We can't keep pushing them forward. They will not function in the real world and in jobs when they're behind. They need these basic, core, fundamental things, and we need to focus on that. I don't think we can focus on that unless our kids are safe. And our teachers can thrive in their environment. So we need to get a good, comprehensive district policy in place that holds our kids accountable and teaches them those wonderful traits. So we have a safety problem. We have an academic decline that is a problem. And I think we can address those both. And I think we can work with the community to do that. And that is what I, Heidi Kakamo, intend to do. And I hope you go out and vote for me.
Hi. The 6 imperatives that I've been advancing: open the regular school board meetings to public input, implement a discipline policy that works, establish a safety incident recording system across the district like Rob Reitz is doing at Mounds High School, conduct listening sessions, talked about that earlier, set the tone early by trying to get some real important improvements early with places like Pinewood, with schools like Pinewood, and then define and communicate a school district improvement roadmap. We have a important decision making this election. You know, do we want to continue a 10-year concerning trend in our academic scores and our mental health surveys, or do we want to turn this around? I'd like to advocate for positive change and get some improvements, you know, that will really make a difference in a positive direction. I'm Paul Wickstrom, and I appreciate your support for school board.
Thank you this evening for your time and your attention. We have a great school district because people are interested in our school district. We go out, we talk to folks, we learn a lot. As I mentioned earlier, I've learned from a lot of people. If I am reelected to the school board, my focus will continue to be on the classroom. Budgets will be spent on teachers. They will be spent on paras. They will be spent on extra help so kids can catch up, like the program that we have going on right now. That will be my overall focus. The magic in the Mounds View School District and the magic in education happens in the classroom. Yes, other things, extracurriculars, there's a whole bunch of things that make the school district special, but those will be my priority. And we have a strong foundation. I think we have a great administration, I think we have great teachers. Our families work together to provide the students the tools to be successful. I hope you'll vote for me, Jim DeMay, on November 7th. And remember to get out and vote early on October 20th. It opens at Roseville Public Library, so we can actually easily vote.
If the community chooses and you trust me with this position and vote for me on or before November 7th, what I promise you is that I will bring my core values to the table. I don't pretend to have all of the answers, and certainly there's a lot to learn about being a school board member. The good news is I really like to learn new things. So I wanted to share my core values, which are to communicate with transparency, clarity, and courageous vulnerability. To respect the whole person, which means that we don't look at them with just one lens, right? To build on a foundation of strengths. What are we doing right? And let's build on that. To seek and harvest the collective wisdom. And lastly, to measure what matters. Measure what matters, and that includes the leading indicators to success.
The focus of my campaign is, as I mentioned earlier, academic excellence. Our students deserve the absolute best that we can provide them as we launch them into the real world. And, you know, I guess at the end of the day, remember the kids today are going to be running the show tomorrow, so we want to give them every possible chance to be successful out there. Getting back to focusing on academic excellence the way our school district once was, that's the focus of my campaign. Everybody benefits in that world. The kids get a great education, fully prepared to do well in the world. The community benefits, society benefits, homeowners benefit. It's a win for everyone. So focusing on academic excellence is where I'm at. I want our school district to be the beacon of academic excellence that it can be.
I'm not endorsed. I don't have fancy connections. I'm just a teacher. I'm a guy. I'm a parent. And one of the things I think is really important is recognizing that what got us here today won't take us there tomorrow. And I appreciate everyone who's participated and I feel honored to be among these folks. But I still see and hear fear, cynicism, and optimism. What I look forward to is common sense education, where we talk about educational pathways. We continually talk about restorative discipline. We make sure that our environments are inclusive and that we have honest education that impacts students so they can critically think.
Just before school, I was at my daughter's orientation, and the dean in the College of Science and Engineering at the university it was showing a poll of the kids, and most of them had studied less than 10 hours a week. And he told them, congratulations, you worked the system, you made it. You got through high school with extraordinary results on ordinary effort. Here, you will get ordinary results on extraordinary effort. We're gonna teach you how to learn. Every day you're gonna study one of your classes. You're gonna put 40 hours a week if you want a chance at a B here. My daughter looked back at me like, what? and this week, she got her first grades back. And she got a 91 and a 94. And she worked 45 hours a week, and she got a job. We're not preparing our kids for that. I didn't prepare her for that. I had no idea. That's crazy. And so I think that we need to make sure that we're encouraging our schools to get them better prepared for life, for homework, and for learning in a different way than we are right now. And that goes beyond just the proficiency scores.
Thank you all for giving up your Monday evening. You are what makes our school district good. In this next election cycle, we have an opportunity to make a good school system even better. As I was leaving the house this evening, my wife's like, okay, honey, don't be too controversial. I'm like, sweetheart, how long have you known me? So I think we have an opportunity here to continue investing in our students and their success during and beyond graduation, our teachers and supporting their success. I'm also not endorsed, which means I didn't take anybody's money and I'm not beholden to anybody. There's the controversial part. Some of you may not know this. There are choices. There's 2 slates of candidates. There's only 2 of us on here who are not part of a slate. So there's, and if I had to boil it down and just kind of generalize it, there is status quo, the current board, and there is maybe significant change. And then there's two of us who are independent in the middle that will do what's best based on your input and what's best for our students and teachers. I was going to say radical.
Oh! She gave you the DEI one first.
You do.
I'd echo the thanks to all of you for being here this evening. I'd like to correct the record. I did do a little fact check. It was me who liked Heidi's post on the SROs coming back to Mounds View City, the city of Mounds View. I got so excited about SROs, I thought she liked my post, but it was her. We've talked a little bit about, endorsements and all that. I happen to be endorsed, but for me, it's about experience. And like Andre and like so many of you, I'm a dad first. I've got 4 boys who have gone through this district. I've gone through this district. That's the experience that I bring, along with 10 years of experience on the board. If reelected, I'll be the longest tenured board member. Take that, as positive or negative, given what you've heard tonight. But I think that matters. I think that level of experience, you learn a lot as you serve this community. I'd be honored to continue to serve. I'd encourage you to learn about the candidates, and I'd humbly ask for your vote.
Okay, thank you, candidates. Let's have a big round of applause. Now I have some homework for you. Go home. Commit to a date to vote. Make sure you vote. And then commit to getting 2 or 3 people to vote too. Because there is an abundance of apathy in our community when it comes to voting. We need to change that. So thank you, candidates, for your effort. Thank you, audience. Class dismissed.